So which one of these is going to give you better results and is the one that you should buy? I think the GoPro is going to give you better results, but that most of you are going to be better off buying the Action 3. Yeah, it's kind of a funky answer, but don't worry, this whole video is about unpacking that answer. What's up, crew? I'm Alan, and if I can have a rad day on a bike, so can you. And when I'm out there having rad days on bikes, I like to capture those adventures on an action camera. And for most of us, when we think action camera, we think the GoPro, which makes sense because GoPro pretty much invented the action camera. They've been in the game the longest, which means they have the most experience and, for better or worse, the most history. It's glitching, what do I do? Take the battery out? What? There have been other action cameras that have come onto the market over the last several years, but in my opinion, the only camera giving the GoPro a run for its money is the DJI Osmo Action 3. I'm going to cover the areas where the two cameras are pretty similar, and then we're also going to talk about how they differ in their image, sound, and convenience or ease of use. Quick bit of house cleaning. Yes, this is what my voice sounds like. I don't have time to let my voice heal up right now because I'm under a bit of a deadline to get this video done, which brings us to our next bit of house cleaning. DJI did send me the Action 3 as well as the Adventure Pack. However, I am under no obligation to promote the camera or say anything good about it. I have been given full permission to give you my unbiased opinion and thoughts on the DJI Osmo Action 3. Before we totally jump into the comparisons, I want to let you know that I tried to set the cameras up pretty similar to each other. So they're both set at 24 frames per second, and the analogous stabilization on both of them are hyper smooth and rock steady. I set the lenses to be super view and ultra wide, so that sets them up pretty similar. Now the GoPro has a whole bunch of other settings in there which I left as I normally leave them. That actual bank of settings is something we'll talk about later, which is maybe not such a great thing about the GoPro, so hang out for that. Let's start with where the two cameras are pretty similar. I'll give you the big ticket item first, which is stabilization. Hyper smooth, rock steady, pretty dang similar. For the most part, you're not really going to see much of a difference. I did occasionally find a little bit of weird behavior with the Action 3, like when I was in a berm, which means I was turning kind of fast and leaned over. I'm not going to do a whole analysis on that, but it is something I noticed. For the most part though, when you edit it and put it up on YouTube, I don't really know who's going to notice the difference. I also did notice a little bit of different behavior with the Action 3 when I was recording myself in the truck talking for one of my crew cuts. Crew cuts are one of the things that you get if you become a channel member, so check out that join button if you want to get more awesome content from this channel. So yeah, when I was recording that, I noticed that it did act a little bit different. Not better, not worse, and maybe somewhat related to the weird behavior in berms. Next up, let's talk about battery life. In the GoPro, I do have the Enduro battery, which is the one with the white end. I think GoPros now just come with the Enduro battery. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong about that. And the Action 3 just has the battery that it came with, and the two performed pretty comparably. For instance, I could ride like for half a day and be able to get by on one battery. I do have a tendency to switch out the GoPro battery before it gets below 40%, and that's because I feel like when it's below a certain percentage, it tends to glitch more. That being said, I did have some experiences with glitching with this, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Bit of clarification here, I don't actually know if the DJI and the GoPro batteries have the same amount of battery life. What I mean to say is that in practical terms, for me, on a normal day of riding, I don't need more than one battery for either camera. Now let's talk about weight. When I first pulled the Action 3 out of the box, I thought this thing is definitely lighter than the GoPro. When I weighed the GoPro, it weighed 158 grams. The Action 3 weighed 145 grams. But wait, the Action 3 actually requires this little clip, and when you add the clip, it actually weighs 161 grams. So technically, the Action 3 weighs 3 grams more than the GoPro, but I mean, it's 3 grams. What does it really matter? So same weight, okay? Same weight. And the last area where they are pretty similar is durability and dependability. Although I would say that the GoPro probably wins out a little bit on the durability, but I can't really say that for sure because I haven't had the Action 3 that long. I'm mostly saying that because if you look at the build quality between the two, the GoPro is just way more ruggedized. It's it just feels more chunky, and the materials on the DJI just feel like less chunky. Like it feels like if I hit both of these with a hammer, the DJI would be on the bench a lot sooner than the GoPro. Now, bit of a caveat, I don't really know how much you really end up banging up your cameras. It's really gonna depend on your use case. For me, I usually have the camera mounted on my chin, and when I crash, it doesn't really hit the ground that much. And when it does, it's not a huge, hard impact. The DJI is probably going to be fine, but if I really had to decide fully based on ruggedness, I would probably go with the GoPro. One thing I will note is that when I was taking the battery door off, I found that this door does just kind of like come off really easily, and the little wire hinge that's in there, it ended up bending a little bit when I was trying to put it on at one point. So the fact that that thing is like really easy to bend with not a lot of pressure didn't give me a lot of confidence, but again, it's something that's inside the camera that's not going to be subject to being hit, but you do have to be a little bit careful about that. So yeah, that's ruggedness and durability, but let's talk about dependability. And by dependability, I mean how often do they glitch? Everybody's got stories about their GoPro glitching, and you don't really hear stories about an Action 3 glitching. But I'll say we may be falling prey to detection bias. And by that, I mean that there are a lot more GoPros out there. They've been around a lot longer, so there's way more opportunities to hear stories about these things glitching, whereas the Action 3 hasn't been out that long, and not as many people have them. So, do the Action 3s glitch? Well, let me turn you over to myself in the field.
All right, I'd love to give you a little bit of comparison footage between the DJI Action 3 and the GoPro. If only I had a GoPro Hero 10 on me right now. Well, look at that. I just happen to have a Hero 10 in my pocket. I'm gonna approximate the angle as close as I can. So I'm gonna use my phone to measure the angle of the DJI. And then when I put the GoPro on, we're gonna do the same thing and use the same angle. We're gonna do 2 runs. I'm gonna try to get the conditions as close as possible, but it is partly cloudy today. This isn't an exact thing, but we're really just kind of looking at image quality, how it deals with going from light to dark, things like that. So the DJI will be a little bit lower because of this little extension on the mount for the magnetic part, and I know that might not seem like a big difference, but with these super wide lenses and stuff, a little bit of adjustment and position and angle ends up making a huge difference in the footage, so keep that in mind. Okay, I'm filming this on my GoPro, so it's a little bit ironic. I don't know if I can get it to do it again, but I've hit the record button 3 times so far on the DJI, and it hasn't started, so I'll do it again, see if we can get it to start. Yeah, so again, hitting record. I'm not getting anything right now. Oh, there it goes. Just started recording. You saw when I hit the record and just started recording. So the DJI never glitching, it's gonna glitch. But you know what? We're talking about electronic devices that we're carrying around with us in the wild and putting them through their paces. They're action cameras, and that's kind of what action cameras are gonna do from time to time. So if you're aiming to get a camera just to totally avoid glitches, remember that you're getting an electronic device that's packed into a tiny little package that's trying to do a whole bunch of stuff, and it may at times glitch out. So don't always use that as your reason for picking your camera.
So yeah, the Action 3 glitched. But like I said in the field, it's an electronic device. These things are going to happen. I will say though, it was a convenient glitch. It didn't make any noise, so I knew to check it before I started my run. The GoPro, however, will make its beeps and pretend like it's recording. You'll get done with your run and find that it actually just turned on and didn't record anything. So 1 point for the DJI on the glitch life. So both of these have shown evidence of glitching, and I want to use that to say that they're pretty similar in terms of dependability. But there's this whole other thing that I want to talk about. I come from a generation where watching a show on TV might mean adjusting antennas and sitting just right so you don't mess up reception. It also might mean blowing the dust out from your game console cartridge when the game was messing up. You might have to defrag a hard drive or wiggle cables, hit stuff. So I'm used to tending to an electronic device in order to get it to perform or even just work. Now I understand there's a whole different mindset which says that I paid the money, it should just work without me having to understand how the device works. My point is, if your mindset is more like mine, you might get along just fine with the GoPro because you're gonna get better results, but it's harder to set up. If you're of the other mindset and you just want it to work, you might get along better with the Action 3 because you're gonna get good enough results and it's harder to mess up. Harder to set up, harder to mess up. So with that being said, let's talk about how these two things are a little bit different. Let's start with image and which one of these can give you the better image. The GoPro can definitely give you a better image. It can be crisper and the colors can be better and more natural. But like I was talking about earlier, you gotta tend to the GoPro to get it to do that. You gotta go in and get the magical combination of all these settings to get it to work right. Do you know what EV Comp is? Do you want to know what EV Comp is? I know what it is because you have to know what it is to get the GoPro to act right. You got to set the color temperature and the color setting. You got to set it to natural or flat. And if you set it to flat, you go into your editor afterwards and then do your color grading. And the result is going to depend on your ability to do color grading. And then there's a couple other settings in there I can't even remember. I've been doing it so long and I still can't remember. The DJI, on the other hand, you just pretty much set a couple of things, hit record and go, and you get pretty decent results. But putting aside all that stuff about the settings, there are still two areas where the GoPro beats out the Action 3. One of those areas is what I call a blowout. It's when you're going from a dark area to a light area and the camera just can't adjust quickly enough and it overexposes and you get just a big blown out white area of the footage. The GoPro has that weird setting I was talking about before, EV Comp, and I can adjust that so that it doesn't do that when I'm going from light to dark. Another thing about image that you might like better in the GoPro is that the GoPro can record 5K. The Action 3 can only record in 4K. I say only record in 4K, but really 4K is plenty. A big caveat here is that after all this, whatever you do, most people are probably going to be watching that footage on their phone or on a small screen. There's no telling what resolution that's going to be in. So even though the GoPro footage might look better on a large screen or in the editing bay, in the final delivery, it might not end up making that much of a difference. All right, another area where the two differ somewhat is audio. The DJI out of the box, I would say, is pretty dang good with audio. And if you're a mountain biker like me and you're doing action stuff, you're thinking about wind and how the camera mics handle wind. The Action 3 somehow handles wind really well. You'll sometimes get a couple of like windy noises in there, but it never overpowers things.
Yeah, dude!
I say somehow, but I think some of the way it does it is it actually just has lower levels and the audio range is less than what the GoPro captures. And the fact that the GoPro captures a wider range of sound and has more sensitivity is both its win and its fail. As you can see, I have to put dead cats on the mics to knock down the wind noise. Otherwise, I have to use the digital wind reduction, which sounds like total crap. And if I leave it in its default setting, which is auto, it switches from stereo to wind, and that transition is terrible. It's just a terrible experience. So I have to go into the settings. I set it to stereo or off. I don't remember what I set it to, but I definitely don't set it on auto, and I definitely don't set it on wind. And then I have to put the fuzzy things on, and then I get a nice wide range of the waveform, and it's more sensitive. So that's the trade-off. You can get a more full range of sound with the GoPro, but you gotta do the settings, and you gotta do all the fuzzy bits. The Action 3, hit record, and you're gonna get pretty decent sound. Now, let's talk about convenience or ease of use. This is the area where the Action 3 just destroys the GoPro. First off, the price. The price, just in general, I don't want to go into all the details, but in general, about $100 cheaper. If you get the camera plus like the Action kit, I think it's called, it comes with everything a mountain biker needs or any outdoor enthusiast would need. That compared to the GoPro with the, I think it's the accessory pack, it's still, this is $100 cheaper and you get a fair bit more. It comes with like battery case for 3 batteries. It's a nice enclosed case. You plug it into the wall, charges your batteries. I don't think it has a battery inside it to charge on the go, but the fact that you can easily transport these 3 batteries in a nice compact case is pretty nice. And that package comes with 3 batteries. The accessory package on the GoPro comes with like 1 extra battery, so you just get a lot more with the DJI packages. Another thing that we've talked about ad nauseum is the setup. It's just really easy to set up the Action 3. I also really like the convenience of the touchscreen on the front. I actually didn't think I'd use it that much, but I've been using it a fair amount. And in general, the touchscreen on the DJI is a lot more responsive than that on the GoPro. There's also this case, which once the camera's in there, has a receptacle for the clip mount, which allows you to mount the camera vertically. I don't really do this that much, but I know a lot of you would appreciate it. And yeah, let's talk about the freaking mag clip. I love this thing. This is one of my favorite features on the DJI. It just makes it really easy to attach and remove the camera. Don't worry, it's not just a magnet. There's also clips on the sides that you kind of have to pull off. It's actually pretty hard to get off because the magnet is really strong, but the clips also secure it there so you don't have to worry about it just popping off. And one of the last convenience things that I like about the Action 3 is how quickly it gets started. It's actually bugging out right now. Just like that. Just get started right away. Before we talk about the convenience, likes and dislikes with the GoPro, let's talk about a couple of things about the DJI that I don't love. I don't love the sound of it starting. The thing about that sound is it's not terribly distinct. When you're outside and it's windy or there's just noise, it's kind of hard to hear that even when it's turned up a bit. And also, it's a bit of a personal thing, but I don't love the shutoff noise. It just makes me feel like I'm turning off a Windows machine or something. Like I feel like I should be checking my email or something.
You've got mail.
I don't love that out in the wilderness, but again, that's a personal thing. All right, so what about my convenience likes and dislikes with the GoPro? Well, aside from the fact that both of these action cameras conveniently allow us to record high quality footage out in the woods in rugged environments, I like that the GoPro's buttons are really easy to find even with gloves on. I also like that the start and stop sound is very distinct. It's a really well-known noise, but it's well-known for a reason. Very distinct, it's very simple, it is very artificial, but that's one of the things that makes it really easy to hear regardless of anything that's going on around you. So which one of these is going to give you better results and which one should you buy? Hopefully my funky answer seems a little less funky to you. The GoPro is going to give you better results, but it's harder to set up. The DJI is going to give you good enough results, and it's harder to mess up. And if you really want to get into it, you should check out this video over here because I'm using one of 2 of these cameras in this video. Check that out. You can hit the subscribe button if you dig this channel. Join, become a channel member, and you'll get even more cool content from me. But whatever you do, until next episode, go have a rad day.